Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Scorpio, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of May, or Taurus season, or whatever your timing paradigm is right now, which could be anything at this point, right? I hope you're well. I'm using the Bulgarian deck, the 777 for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's via links in the description box below. One of them will take you to Self-I if you're looking for just the standalone video for Scorpio. But if you want to look at other signs, your moon, your ascendant, whatever, and have access to all of the extended content that I make, you might want to come over to Circle. The Order of the Phoenix is my private community hosted on the platform, the Circle platform, and there not only do you get all of the extended content for all of the signs, you also get weekly energy readings. You also get the opportunity to come participate in the Deccan Walk, which we're doing as a collaborative project over there. And I have to say the results of that, even though we're only 6 decans of 36 in, are really quite astonishing. They are proving to be life-changing for people already. So that's a whole thing there. But if you join at the higher tier, you can come participate in the live classes that we run over there in all sorts of modalities, not just tarot, but chaos magic, witchcraft, herbalism, like all sorts of things. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, check out that link below. So let's have a talk about what we're actually going to do here today, Scorpio, because each month seems to be taking on somewhat of a theme. Let's flip it over. And to be fair, this is probably deeply influenced by the Deccan Walk that we're doing at the moment. So we're going to start off with really the most important question that you can ask yourself in 2026, which is simply, where am I right now? We're not talking about, potential crises or things that could go wrong in the future. It's like, what is the state of play right now for us? Most important question to locate yourself. And from there, influenced by the Deccan Walk, we're in Taurus 3 at the moment, right? So we've had Taurus 1, Taurus 2, now we're in Taurus 3. This seems very much related to the identification of problems and then the problem solving of that. So, one of the questions that I've been asking the other signs is, if everything was to stay the same, and you were doing the same thing now that you're doing, doing the same thing in 5 years' time that you're doing now, would that be acceptable to you? Because I think here is a moment where we can start to tweak that somewhat. We may not have any idea about where we're going, but we can certainly recognize what isn't really cutting it in the moment that we're in right now, right? And orient towards something that feels better, feels more fulfilling, staves off the spectre of what we can see 5 years down the road to something much more meaningful. And then we will finish up with the second most important question you can ask yourself during this time, which is, what is the next step? Like I said, it's not about having a great grand plan in 2026. It is simply the next step, and then the one after that, and then the one after that. And each time checking in, where am I? What's the next step? Where am I? What's the next step? So this is what I have for you. I hope that this is acceptable. So let's get stuck in. Where is Scorpio right now, please? Woo, okay. 5 of Pentacles on its side, which is interesting because this is Taurus 1. This is the card that represents the energy of Taurus in the first decan. Okay, and there is the Sun. I'm starting to see a theme here starting to appear. One more card for Scorpio, please. And we have the 8 of Wands. Right, the Devil is at the bottom of the deck, and I think there's an interesting point here, because it feels like you've naturally been thinking about this thing already. Now, we have to remember that you are connected to Taurus across the axis. So the energies that play out in Taurus in some way or another, maybe even by opposition, are affecting you too. And I do wonder if maybe you've been having these same thought processes yourself. Now, where to start with this? Right, let's start with the energy of the Devil. The Devil quite often represents where we feel stuck or trapped. Realistically, what the Devil actually represents is where we give our power away, and then we sit perhaps in a state of learned helplessness going, well, I need someone to come and save me. Like, I don't recognize the fact that I can walk away from this situation anytime I want. It is the it is the illusion of not having the ability to be able to change one's situation. There are many other things that it represents besides, but I think that that's quite an important one to start off with here, because where the devil energy is really, really strong, we quite often feel like we don't have a choice, and we'll find ourselves repeating really rather toxic patterns, something that definitely would approach the level of self-sabotage, if you believe that self-sabotage exists, and that's a questionable point on its own. But certainly the sense of not being able to move in a meaningful way because we are tethered to something. The devil card tells us that that is actually quite illusory quite often, right? So then we have these two cards here, and I think this is why I feel confident in saying you're already thinking about these things, because that Five of Pentacles, which is a lack or a fear of a lack in future, I've really been focusing on the fear rather than what's going on in the here and now, and how we utilize that fear as a tool for change rather than a tool for standing still. And this is where this question of, where are you in 5 years' time, but maybe where even are you like this time next year, in May 2027, what does life look like for you? Because there are periods of time where things are really difficult, things are really hard, and we're putting in more effort than usual. But the only thing that is really consistent across the universe is that everything changes. And as someone whose energy is represented by the Death card, I feel like you should be innately tuned into that as an idea, right? But what is it then that you see down the track? And it doesn't have to be specifics, it doesn't have to be the details, but the feeling, the what you have versus what you don't have, that you can look around in the present moment right now and identify that there is a deficit of perhaps attention, or a deficit of companionship, or a deficit of meaningful relationships, let's put it that way, or a deficit of quite literally the material stuff. I haven't got enough money. What am I going to do to change this? I can't build on something that isn't there, right? So maybe I need to think about my foundations a little bit more clearly. We all slide into holes periodically, and we all recognize that there are places where our needs are not being met in whatever way that shows up for you. But I think spending a moment to glance at the fear of what this might look like if we were still in this spot in May 2027, or May 2030, or May 2031, can be quite a good motivator for shifting us out of where we're stuck. Now, like I said, this card's on its side, and for me, that is either a statement of a potential energy that hasn't yet been activated, or it's something that we're witnessing on the turn. It's like it's a little snapshot of time where we're moving from the fuck, I don't have the things that I want, to okay, I'm going to stabilize that energy and start working on the things that I want, right? The fact that it's showing up sideways there is a good indication that your mind is working in this way. And maybe you might be actually taking some sort of action towards that. And then we have the sun. And the sun is the light of consciousness, right? It is joy, it's happiness, it's the ability to spring around like a small child and actually enjoy this existence that we have here on this plane for however long that we have it. It is also matters of the inner child, and for me, the sun has a particular depth that isn't always noticed, because it's the first card that represents an emergence from a dark underworld journey. No? Now, it might be that you have actually been, or you might still be there right now, been on this underworld journey, right? It's one that you could say it starts at, the Hangman, but we're definitely in the midst of it by the time we get to the Death card, right? And then we have that whole underworld journey that's going on, and then the sun rises, we re-emerge, we are reborn, we bring that childlike wonder about the world back, right? When we've experienced real hardships, we can start to take pleasure in the simple things. Now, this is showing up on its side as well. And I can't help but feel like these two cards are deeply related in terms of The stabilization of this leads to the activation of this. It's like you want to strip out all the complexity from your life. And the funny thing is, Scorpio, I feel like that's always been a bit of a motivation of yours, and yet it's always felt like you've tripped over your own complexity. It's like it doesn't really matter how much you try and unpick things. Inevitably, at some point, you feel ambushed by something that you should have seen coming. Now, that suspicion about the ambush is very much contrary to the energy of the sun. The sun just simply shines, and it doesn't really care what's going on around it, right? And equally, we've got this wolf and this boy here in the card. I'll just hold it up a bit closer so you can see it. And they are not expecting anything. They're not sitting in a state of ambush at all. They're simply enjoying the warmth of the sun. And I think there's such a deep yearning in you, Scorpio, for that. For things just to be simple, just to be lacking that fear of ambush. And the thing is, I think you're so very close to emerging from that place, right, where the fear is still deeply operating. Because this Wands card that we have here is the Eight of Wands. It represents, what is it? Mercury in Sagittarius. It's often given to be related, as you might expect, with communication, particularly fast-moving communication, right? It's a Mercury card, it's a Sagittarius card, so there's no hanging around, it's direct, it's to the point. But it doesn't feel communicative to me exactly. It feels like it's orienting itself towards the horizon. Now, it could well feel like you're actually kind of stuck in the middle of everything. Maybe there's quite a Saturnine experience that you're having at the moment, and it just feels fucking relentless and it's not going away. In that way that Saturn tends to do. He doesn't sort of pop in every now and again and fuck your shit up like, say, for example, Uranus does. And then goes, hi, ciao, I'll come back in 6 months and fuck something else up for you so you can break through, right? No, with both Pluto and Saturn, I feel like there's a continuous fucking grind that is always going on here. And I do feel like you're having some sort of Saturnine experience, and that's probably not terribly comfortable for you. Whether it's the sun opposing whatever you have in Scorpio at the moment, or whether it's something else, hard aspect that's being drawn to some of your placements by some of those outer planets. The Eight of Wands feels much more like a sense of getting close to some sort of breakthrough. We're not there yet, but it's not too far away. And I don't think that you quite dare to hope for it yet, but nevertheless, it's still present. It's kind of like, if the balance is here, and your experience has been down here, there's a sense that it's dragging itself up. And it's not really a situation that requires hope on your part, really. It's more like a witnessing that you're doing to it at the moment. Tell me about this Eight of Wands. I just want to point out that it's the Nine of Swords that's also shown up there. I'll just get one more card for that Page of Wands. Yeah. So we've got the Eight of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, which is always about where we're disciplined and consistent and what we work on to become masters of things. Now, you're no stranger to things being difficult, Scorpio. I think you're probably pig sick of it by now, to be honest. And you certainly wouldn't be alone in that experience. But there seems to have been something that's pushed you through, that's been pushing you through. Can we call it a long dark night of the soul? Because I think that's what it is. But I also get a sense of it coming to a state of completion. Because you have the Five of Pentacles followed by the Sun, right? So we have the dark, we have the uncomfortable, we have the chaotic, being followed by something, at least it's got the potential to be followed by something that feels simpler. that feels more capable of just being enjoyed. And then we have the Devil and the Nine of Swords, both of them very, very uncomfortable cards, being followed by the Page of Wands, which is not necessarily an augur of hope, but an awareness of the path that is being followed. Now, when you look at this Eight of Wands, beg your pardon, here, you'll see that all of those arrows are oriented towards the horizon, and it's quite unusual to see the wands from this perspective. We've got a definite bird's eye view of what's going on in the wands, right? Usually they're coming this way, or they're coming this way, or they're arching over. You know, we usually see them in side profile, but you've got a bird's eye view of this here. And I think there is a sense that we're coming to the end of something. It's just a case of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, I absolutely can't criticise the diligence with which you've attended to this, even though you might want it to have run away from it all. I don't blame you at all. But there's a shifting around of perspective that's happening now. And I wonder if part of it is a recognition of the self-imposed limitations. Things like, well, I can't have that, that's not for the likes of me, that are being challenged. Oh, that's interesting, because I saw that same kind of paradigm emerging for Taurus as well, your opposite sign. Why not me? It's not quite why not you. But it feels like you're coming face to face with your own demons and being like, fucking hell, fuck's sake. You know, there's a weariness here, there's an exhaustion here, Scorpio. And like I said, I'm not really seeing much that suggests hope here, in so much as you are, you know, now imbued with this bubbling wellspring of hope, and it's you know, carrying you forwards. It's awareness. And it's not heavy, it's just the same weight as everything else. But there's coming a point very soon, it does feel like it's very soon, where things are all going to start to synthesize in a way that makes a lot more sense. Except that it doesn't really not make sense if you follow what I'm saying, right? You are aware of exactly the road that you have been on. And you've struggled and you've suffered through it. Because this is the way, right? This is the way. And it's not even like you're motivated by the promise of better things. It's the promise of simpler things. It feels like a purge. Been going through a really big purge, and the Nine of Swords here is actually the transition between the Devil and the Page of Wands, which is really interesting, because I don't really see the Nine of Swords as a negative card per se, in so much as it's all about perspective. Now, if you're acutely aware that in some way or another you are having your perspective tweaked, and that there's a very necessary facing of one's demons that needs to occur for you to get the right perspective, once you're there, then things do get really simple. It's one of the benefits of working really hard at stuff. It's right, you develop competence, and there is no sign above you in terms of its ability, maybe below you, in terms of its ability to navigate the dark night of the soul. But rather than the usual exhausted dragging of oneself out of that, there seems to be something much, much lighter on the horizon for you here. And you can feel it coming. Now, if you were a different sign, you might get wildly excited about that and enthusiastic and throw yourself towards it, but you understand that these things take time. There's a pacing here, and everything happens in its own time. And there's no point in forcing it, particularly not when the work is so important, right? When it comes down to the way that you quite literally, what kind of what kind of reality you consent to experience. It's underneath the Devil, the Magician. And these are both very tricksy cards. There we go. That's it. It's a very careful path that you're walking now. Because, why? Because both of these characters are incredibly fucking tricksy, right? We usually interpret the Magician as quite a positive card of manifestation and, you know, the combination of will with potential forces to create something, right? To literally create. But what a magician does is manipulate reality. And the only thing really that distinguishes him from the devil quite often is the purity of the intent behind it. Both are masters of manipulating reality. And the reason that you're walking this road so carefully and so quietly and so carefully is because you're wanting to vibrate with the higher energies of the magician rather than the lower energies of the devil. I mean, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense to me. Right. Let's have a look and see if we can ascertain what problem and solution you are wrestling with right now. Tell me what Scorpio is wrestling with in terms of that. So we have the Five of Wands. Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. There's definitely some wrestling going on there. We have the Two of Wands. And we have the Nine of Swords. With the Eight of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. Again, I shit you not. Look at this. Right. So we have another Saturn card here in the Five of Wands. This is Saturn and Leo. And we have the Two of Wands here. It's interesting because there's a dual fold thing happening here, Scorpio, and it's quite interesting. There's layers to what's going on with you, as one would expect, right? Because you aren't a simple creature. There is a depth to you that is sometimes difficult for you to navigate, let alone expecting anybody else to do the same. And would you even want them to do it? Probably not, right? But notice how we have a reorientation of the swords here in this one. Here. It's the only card in the tarot where the swords are depicted as presenting horizontally, right? They are a neutral thing. And this is why I said that I feel like the Nine of Swords is a transition here between the Devil and the Page of Wands. It's a very necessary point of consideration. Is my reality intact? Is my perception of reality intact? Am I barking mad right now, or is this real, right? When the swords turn down here, usually I've had this arbitrary rule that swords down are bad and swords up are good. It's not followed consistently across all decks, and in fact the opposite seems to be true in this Bulgarian deck. If I talk about the Ace of Swords and the King of Swords, you know, all of the court hierarchy of swords, actually usually these swords are depicted as upward, right? They represent truth. They represent a breakthrough, something like that, right? The highest vibration of all, and all that sort of thing. But here in the Bulgarian deck, confounding expectations, as Bulgaria likes to do periodically. Ace of Swords is pointing down. Queen of Swords also has the same thing. Well, there we go. Look, Five of Swords. Wherever that went, the swords were up. Every single one of them is up. So, yeah, Queen of Swords, the sword is down. Now, I don't know if this is a cultural difference of perception, right? But it's quite interesting, even just in terms of relating this to what I know about Eastern Europe as a culturally speaking, which is their acceptance of shit things happening and their ability to be able to endure them. I think in the West we're a little soft when it comes to navigating through difficult things. I'm not speaking about you specifically, Scorpio. Please don't think that I am, but in terms of culturally how we navigate through difficult moments, right? And this is what's given rise to things like, you know, toxic positivity and good vibes only, and you know, all that sort of stuff. It's an unwillingness to deal with the things that are dark. That is a bit of a Western phenomenon, right? Whereas over here in the east of the West, at least anyway, there is much more of a willingness to sit with that. And so, although the swords down are maybe from one perspective bad, they are also simultaneously representing a truth, a series of truths, truth about perception, all that sort of stuff, that we are being asked to sit with and accept for what it is. Now, sometimes when the Two of Wands shows up in between two other cards, it quite literally is a state of, you know, pick one. Like, you can continue to keep fighting, you can continue to keep struggling, or you can gracefully accept the reality. And maybe for you there is an aspect of that here. Again, we've got the Eight of Pentacles showing up twice, which is representing the work. And this isn't your job, my friends. This is your great work. This is what you're here to do. It's what you're here to struggle through. The question becomes, are you going to fight this, or are you going to accept it? But there's another way of looking at this that I'm seeing here, you know, because levels of complexity, Scorpio, where we've got an acceptance of the truth, and what we're struggling with is the crossroads. What is the best expression of my energy in this time? What direction do I go in, right? It's that kind of feeling like you're spinning and not really knowing where you're supposed to be going, and you've got nothing to do but keep doing the thing that you have been doing without this sense of there being anything that alleviates that. Except at the same point, you know it's en route, which is really interesting. Now, could be that both of them apply. Let's have a look at this Two of Wands. Why are you here? This is a perception issue, Scorpio. I really do think it's a perception issue, right? So we've got Page of Pentacles, we've got Page of Cups, we've got the King of Swords, and we've got the Fool here. Now, I'm giggling at this Magician showing up on its side, because I really do feel like you want to move into this state where you are starting to create your own reality. But first you have to, you know, make sure that you know what the fuck reality is and whether you've got a handle on it in the first place. And maybe even if you don't, maybe if you feel like you're highly delusional at this point, like maybe that's where you're supposed to be. Because the Page of Pentacles and the Page of Cups here are really leaning into the value of the emotional experience that all of this is bringing up in you. And there is an indication that moving with integrity, as per the suggestion from not just one but two Nine of Swords followed by the King of Swords here, it's talking about the acuity of the decisions that you make from here on out. Like, it would be nice if, like in the movies, we all get training in magic and spiritual stuff, right? And we just pick up a wand and it's all Wingardium Leviosa and all that sort of shit. And with the, you know, there's a direct fucking result from us waving the wand around that tells us whether or not we fucking got that right. But it doesn't work like that. Not really. Certainly not at this point. Maybe a few thousand years from hence we'll be working with that a little bit more, right? And it's like, if you are looking for guarantees that your integrity is functioning properly and your perspective is functioning properly, like, you're probably not going to get them. The Fool here is asking you to have some faith, not just in yourself, but also in the universe at large here. You know, the universe isn't meaningless, and it's certainly not silent, quoting, who was I? Oh, fucking Albert Camus. There you go. We'll throw some Camus in there for you. You know, but at the same time, if you're waiting for fireworks and bunting and things that are going to show you the way, you're kind of missing the essence of the Magician right here. what I'm trying to say, Scorpio, is like, and forgive me if this sounds a little brutal, I don't mean it this way. I mean it nicer, so say it nicer to yourself in your head than I'm capable of giving it to you right now. It's like, stop waiting for the universe to spoon feed you the next step. That's not what the energies of this moment are about. Now, if you've done all the checks and balances, if you've done your long dark night of the soul, and I really do feel like what we're seeing, the emergence that is coming from that, then you have all of the information that you're required to make the decisions about what you do next. The only thing that's missing is the faith and the trust. But if you are waiting for the universe to light up the way for you with fireworks, with bunting, with, you know, kazoos and celebration and shit like that, like, you're just going to stay where you are. So do you trust the quality of your work? Now, I'm not just talking about whatever you've been through recently, but like a lifetime's worth of work, a lifetime's worth of understanding yourself, a lifetime's worth of unpacking all the shit that you've repressed for such a long time. You know, the Queen of Pentacles is here. For me, she is absolutely associated with understanding the value of investment. She knows the price of things, and not just materially, but oh, a law of equivalent exchange. I'll throw that in there. I was talking to Cancer about that as well. It's almost like you're damning yourself. If you doubt yourself, you are damning yourself to continue with this struggle backwards and forwards. Or you could just start putting one foot in front of the other and exhibit the perfect faith and perfect trust that is the representation of the Fool. And start doing the fucking things. You don't need an invitation. And the thing about this period here is, it's like, it's not just you, Scorpio. Like, literally every single sign is looking at this, you know, formless black void in front of us, which is the future, and going, well, I don't fucking know what that's about. But we're all recognizing that we have a part to play in the construction of what comes next. And this is why it's so difficult to look forward and try and work out what is coming next, because it hasn't been built yet. And the more you hang around and doubt yourself and, you know, all that sort of stuff, agonize over whether you've got the perspective right, you're not actually doing the thing. It's funny, I always do a meditation before I start any of the readings. Well, you can call it a meditation, I'm not quite sure what it is, right? But it's just a space that I create and I step into when I'm doing a reading for someone. And I start getting some really, really strong pains in my right side, right? My right arm, right forearm, right hand, my thumb, everything. And I was like, that's interesting, that's the giving side, that's the doing side, right? Left is about receiving, it's very yin, it's coming in. Right side is about action. And there seemed to be some pain around action, pain around doing something. I think the problem is that whilst you're leaning into your strengths of being incredibly circumspect and allowing yourself to, you know, move through all these sorts of things, like, I think you're waiting for the checkered flag. And it's like, it's here, do you choose it? It'll be here next week as well. It was probably here last week. This is all about, you know, true, sovereign, authentic movement forward. And to some extent, we don't necessarily get fucking guided on that one. Because it has to be a true, authentic, sovereign expression of everything that is true, sovereign, authentic about us. You're sitting on the fence when you should be doing something, is what it feels like to me. So let's have a look and see what the next step is for you, Scorpio. What's the next step for Scorpio? Eight of Cups. Ace of Swords. Interesting, I should have referenced that, and there it is. Three of Pentacles and the Nine of Cups. Happiness, emotional fulfillment, spiritual fulfillment, these are not end destinations, Scorpio. They're really not. And I think the next step for you is to kind of break free from that expectation that things are going to play out the way that you traditionally expect them to, because you're not in traditional times, right? Everything's fucking chaotic and flying around and whatnot, and this is wonderful. This is really wonderful because it is creating space, and you are not, you're not exempt from the need to create space between how you have done things in the past and what was expected of you in the past, and maybe even the extent to which the universe has guided you in the past. We're doing things differently now. We have to leave behind in order to gain. Law of equivalent exchange, right? You want the good stuff, you're going to have to make space for it. And the time that you're agonizing around, like doing the right thing or or whatever it is, like you're not actually doing the thing. And this is the difference. So if spiritual fulfillment, emotional fulfillment, if the things that are good, even emotional regulation, which, I'm a big fucking fan of and see very little of out there in the world, if these things are to be achieved, if these are to be engaged with, then we have to fucking move. Eight of Cups to the 9. The truth here is that you have all of the bits of information that you need. You just got to synthesize them to that moment, which is, I'm going to go do the things and I'm going to choose to live a life that is, fulfilled and emotionally regulated and full of the good stuff that is of the new rather than of the old. And to some extent, with that Three of Pentacles there, I think you need to draw yourself out of isolation, and you need to start getting out there and seeing people, meeting people, working together with people. It's like the change has been wrought. The only thing that's missing is the trust. Now, obviously you're Scorpio, so trust is in short supply and all that kind of thing, right? But all the same, we're not trying to end up at a destination where there's, party poppers and confetti and all that sort of stuff. Like, we're trying to embody what we've learned. And trust issues have always been a problem for you, not least for you, trusting yourself. But we're down to the wire now. So here is your epiphany moment. Are you going to go do the thing, or are you going to keep doing this? Are you going to let yourself be seen, Scorpio? Because I tell you what, I know it's always been a problem, and I get that. I fucking hear you, right? My son's in the 8th house, so it's canny fucking Scorpio-like anyway, even though it's in Leo. But my midheaven is in Scorpio. I don't want to say to you, what do you have to lose? Because I'm sure you could give me 1,000,001 really, good answers to that one. But these actually aren't, that's not the rules of the game anymore. The rules of the game are get yourself out there and seen and start living a life that is full of that kind of spiritual, emotional, mental, physical progression. It's just like, get out there and do the things. Be the sunshine. Be Scorpio. Show yourself. Maybe it's time for you to start having an effect on the culture around you that doesn't want anything to do with anything that is dark and negative. That is a little bit too hard. I mean, you're the perfect person to do this job, Scorpio. And to bring all the depth and the intensity that you have to the situation. Why? Because we're building something now. And it requires all of us to show up with all of ourselves. Oh, fucking hell, I've been banging on for ages. Right, Scorpio, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go to the extended. You're very welcome to join me if you would like to do so. The links are in the description box below. For Self-I, for Circle, whichever one works for you is fine. If you're not interested in the extended, that is also fine. Like, you got plenty on your plate, you've got plenty to do. I'm just here reading the weather, my friends, you know. So, yeah. All right. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.